might be compromised. Or, any, any other challenges, whether it be a roof that's material deficient, or in case of a fire, one that's been compromised from fire, so. So protecting downtown is kind of one of our paramount concerns, because the building spacing is very close together. So I have a couple pictures that will kind of show the benefits of having that water stream up above, but it helps cut down on ember spread. So if the embers have to come up through water, then it's going to help extinguish quite a few of those. But it also provides much better access to get water right to the fire compared to trying to shoot from the ground, either with a fixed street on a truck or through nozzles. So this is some different pictures of ways that we've used the aerial waterway. So each of them, you can kind of see that the water is being used to come right down on a fire that's already ventilated itself through the structure. And in this case, the building's actually up on a hill, and there's another truck over here that was using a deck gun, and they're just kind of shooting water over the fire. It's not actually getting onto where the fires actually is. So if we're able to actually point down and point straight in, then it's much more effective.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is the pointing remote from the base of the ladder, or is somebody up there actually directing?
Well, both.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, the nozzle has a control at the nozzle. There's also one at the base. So sometimes you can see better from below. Sometimes you can see better from above. It all kind of depends on the smoke conditions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
pretty cool.
This is later on, but the picture to the right, that was the NC Hunt fire. We were up there for, what'd you say, John, 10 hours?
I was up there in 10 hours total.
So we can control it from up there. It can go from a fog to a straight stream. So the fog would kind of offer a little bit more protection for those embers or blowing, or exposure protection, and the straight stream would be for trying to penetrate into the fire a little bit more. So again, it's rated for at least 1,000 gallons a minute on the ladder we have now.
Chief, the schooner landing, like probably one of the more recent ones in everybody's memory. How would that have been different without the ladder, utilize the ladder truck? Oh, well, I should have known that was coming.
There's been a few fires. These are two of them where having an aerial here, I think, definitely saved extra structures. With schooner, we had the wind coming right off the river, and it was blowing pretty hard that night. So the smoke was actually blowing right across Main Street. So the aerial even set up where it was, and these are both pictures of schooner. We were able to provide protection to the building that houses Metcalf's pretty well. There was no damage to that building from the fire. And I believe a lot of that has to do with having big water. So that means we had a good hydrant system, and we had the ladder truck set up right off, and we had it hooked to the hydrant. So in that case, the ladder laid a line in from Colby and Gale, the hydrant right out in front of the station there, and Bristol had their first truck hook up to that and feed the ladder. So I think we were probably flowing within 5 minutes of you guys being there.
Yeah, we were flowing somewhere around 1,500 gallons a minute. Somewhere in that range. Between the lines that we had coming off plus the area.
So, we can only really support big water when you have water available. So what's nice about downtown is, for the most part, there's hydrants that are relatively accessible. If we didn't have that ladder truck, we'd be waiting for one from Waldoboro to come, and that's an extra probably 10-15 minutes of recognizing that you need it, getting them on the road, and then getting here.
What's the maximum distance from a hydrant that you can hook up?
Each truck carries around 1,000 feet of hose.
Okay.
If you go much further than 1,000 feet, you need to put a truck that moves the pressure up in between, so. There's not really a limit other than, we have 4,000 feet of hose, so. And we have to tie up a truck about every 1,000
Yeah,
feet to do that, so. Usually if we're looking at, much further than a couple 1,000 feet, we're gonna be doing a tanker shuttle to move water around. So another example, where the ladder truck probably paid for itself was the old Lincoln County News Building that was between Elm Street and Church Street. So that burned in the middle of the night. There was only about 5 to 10 feet between that building and the adjacent building, and we were able to use the waterway to again protect that exposure and keep that from catching. And then it wasn't with this ladder truck, but the Serendipity building that burned
Oh, yeah.
downtown. That burned almost completely, and there was a building within a foot or two of it, and having a water curtain between the buildings saved that from going, because once a fire starts going from building to building, it's very difficult to then try to get ahead of it. So some of the infrastructure challenges, that's another picture of schooner, that we have is obviously downtown, like I've talked about. There's the hospital complex. And then we have a lot of industrial buildings. You have Walgreens, you have the grocery stores. We have 3 lumber yards, and the fire load at a lumber yard is just absolutely incredible on how much stuff will burn. More and more solar panels. Like I talked about chimneys in house construction are changing. So roofs are getting kind of longer. It used to be everyone either did a cape or colonial. Now there's a lot of ranches that are much wider, kind of like this building, where you need to have a 40-foot ground ladder in order to, hook along the roof. So the distance between the roof edge and the peaks has increased dramatically. So switching kind of to what our plan had been, we started a fleet modernization program in fiscal year 14. We had 6 apparatus, and we were dropping to 4. So if we fast forward to today, we have those 4 pieces of apparatus. We have a higher pump capacity than we did back with the old fleet. A little bit less water, but everything else is either better or the same.
The jaws of life, I was gonna ask that question, but they already have it up there. So you're carrying that forward on the next truck.
The jaws of life actually are on engine 2. It's on our rescue pumper.
Okay.
Yeah. So that will stay. That will stay on that truck. So again, until real recently, we were planning on doing a 1-for-1 replacement at this point, so we were going to maintain 4 apparatus. Engine 1 is a 2002 and ladder 4 is a 2003, so they're within 1 year of each other in age. They're both the most expensive vehicles that we have to replace. So we had been working on budgeting and spreading those out so that the next time the replacement came around, we had a little bit more time in between. But fire vehicles have increased dramatically. They've gone up about 60% in the last 3 or 4 years, and that does not look like it's slowing down. There's a few things going on. Steel and aluminum continue to become more expensive. There's new EPA standards for diesel engines that everyone's trying to figure out. Those costs are going way up. And I'll get into another slide, but the build cycle is 3 to 4 years. So when they're giving you a price for a vehicle, it's not like you can go pick it up off the lot. They're trying to forecast what the cost of everything's going to be in 3 or 4 years when they're actually going to be delivering it. So, as a result of that, the costs have just come to the point where we're no longer planning on replacing engine one and the ladder. We're planning on trying to replace the ladder, with hopefully an order this year. And then, engine one, we will keep in service as long as it's, economical to do so. And when it's not, we will have to rely more on mutual aid to fill that role.
In that regard, the ladder truck, is it still the unique one between us and Newcastle? Do we still share that, or do they have one too?
I believe there's only 4 ladders in the county that are, in use. I don't think Dresden has theirs in use anymore. There's one in Wiscasset, Booth Bay Harbor, Waldoboro, and us.
Okay, so Newcastle doesn't have one.
Newcastle doesn't have one. So the cost, for a replacement today is somewhere in the 1.7 to 1.9 million dollar range. We've talked to 2 different suppliers as the truck committee, and they said the build times are anywhere between 30 and 40 months. So we're looking at least 3 years likely before we're able to take delivery of a truck if we place the order today.
How many suppliers, if you will, that are there out there?
I think we found 6 or 7 for ladder trucks. There's more for regular trucks, but there's very few for ladders.
And if you went back 20 years, would have that number been significantly higher?
Probably double.
Double?
There's some that just aren't. American LaFrance is one that isn't in business anymore. Maxim was our original ladder truck. That company is not in business anymore.
Well, do you think that all 6 or 7 will bid on this? Or,
I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 of them will for sure.
Okay.
Well, since the population has been growing, what do you think of the reduction of those businesses? Is it because of improvements to building code and things like that?
I think like all industries, there's been changes. Some companies adapt and others don't. So looking at what the ladder truck costs are today, a 10% increase is roughly, $176,000. And that's a year-over-year increase. So last fiscal year or the current fiscal year we're in, we'd allocated 105,000 towards the capital improvement plan. And so every year if we only allocate that much money, we're getting further behind than if we were actually to just bite the bullet and bond it, and lock in the price now. So that's the primary reason why we kind of changed tactics on waiting another couple of years to order it. And if we order it, it is waiting another couple of years before it actually comes here. So right now, if we ordered the truck like we're planning on sometime at the end of July, assuming it gets approved at town meeting, we're looking at the truck being 25 years old when the replacement shows up anyways. So that's a pretty reasonable service line.
well, will there be a secondary market for this ladder truck?
We're told there might be. They think it's in pretty decent shape. Someone might get it as, a reserve truck to keep in case their primary is down. But getting an estimate on what that is again is a 3-year.
Sure.
The market could be completely different in 3 years. And there's also the OSHA proposed changes that are kind of hanging out. And those had implications to try to retire trucks according to the NFPA schedule. So the NFPA recommends a truck serve as a primary capacity for 10 to 15 years. And then there's a reserve capacity for 5 to 10. And after 20 to 25 years, they recommend the truck be taken out of service because the NFPA updates the standards every so often to try to improve safety and reliability and different things. So once a vehicle or any piece of firefighting equipment becomes more than 3 standards old, they generally consider it to be obsolete. So at this point, our truck would be probably 4 or 5 additions. So we put together a bid package, which I think Andy sent out with the board package. Uh, so with some of the highlights, we're looking for at least 100-foot reach. And a lot of people would say, why do you need a 100-foot ladder? There's not any buildings that are 100 feet in town, and it's not really the height, it's the reach. So if you're looking at buildings that are set off from the road, you can eat up 100 feet real quick. And the truck's 40 feet long. If we have to do a set where we're going off the front of the truck, we lose that 40 feet. And the 100-foot ladder is actually have a 90-foot horizontal reach. It has a 100-foot vertical reach, but that's, you know, when it's at 78 degrees, which is a pretty steep angle. So if you're actually trying to go up to the side or off the back, it's about 90 feet. So we don't want to lose any of the reach on what we have. We want to keep the 2,000 gallon minute pump capacity and the same water we have. The 6-person cab. And we're looking to stay with the dual axle truck, which is what we have now. The NFPA standard 1900 is what is the new standard for fire apparatus. So we want it to hold all the equipment that it needs to. And then we've established which ground ladders that we want it to hold. And looking to maximize compartment space. And our ladder truck right now is 1110, and when we pull it out of the station, it touches the weather stripping at the top of the door, so we can't go over that.
Don't bounce it.
Don't hit the brakes, siren. So at Andy's request, we took the scoring methodology that we usually would use to score the bids afterwards, and we built that into the specs so that everyone knows what our plan is for going after a best value contract. There's 11 categories and the weights are included here.
So this seems like a fairly complicated RFP. I mean, just having read through it, and having been involved in drawing them up in the past. Did you guys have help doing that, or is there a template, or? Because if you just do it from
No,
scratch, it would be like totally in alignment.
Yeah, well, we started with the spec we had for engine 2 and changed it for to include ladder stuff. We met with E1 and Pierce, which are two of the major manufacturers that have reps in the area. And they both provided a draft spec.
Yeah.
What's common is departments would take one of those specs and pretty much slap their name on the front of it and then send it out, but every manufacturer does stuff just different enough that everyone knows which spec it is, and they'll be less likely to bid on it if you make it too focused on one company. So we tried our best to remove some of that stuff. But at the same time, you need to try to provide enough that you're comparing two similar products instead of someone that's taking, like, using really cheap lights everywhere instead of light. I answer your question already.
Yeah.
So somehow I missed it. Maybe it was on, there's supposed to be something there. So I did have something there, I think it was 1943 was a fire that consumed a large portion of the downtown area. Before that, I think it was 45 or 48, almost the entire town burned, and that's when we started going to brick buildings. So again, elevated waterway would be a good tool to try to stop it from spreading building to building. So our recommendation is to allow us to proceed with the spec or make modifications to the spec. Our timeline that we'd laid out was to seek approval tonight, and if approved, then we would mail the spec out to we have 6 or 7, I think, vendors that we've got the contact information for, and start the process, so that if the bond's approved at the town meeting, then we would come to you at the last meeting in July for, with the recommendations on. Which truck is
I
cheaper.
don't think we're qualified to modify the spec. I mean, there's a double female in there. I don't know what the heck that means.
I'll show you. We got the-
Yeah, I think,
So am I, anyway.
that's a great presentation, chief, and I think you have a very large show and tell.
Yeah,
What do you
we,
say you
Yeah,
wanna
we can-
show off out there?
yeah, so, at this point, you wanna go outside and.
Do you have any other questions? But you guys don't get questions in the back there. I'm curious. Oh. Then you can bring the meat now. Realize where you go. We're still in our public forum workshop.
Gotta wait just in time, you steer.
You do, yeah. We're gonna do it all over again.
This is the fun, Michael.
What I heard.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and we'll revisit the RFP and stuff later.
Well, actually, I did have one question, that when I was looking through it, it was about the weighting. In terms of 20% for price, 10% for whatever, is that, you guys came up with those weights?
Yeah.
Okay,
What's important?
yeah,
I mean, we also put in there, we can adjust it up to the point of opening bids, I think is the way we worded it.
okay,
We wanna make sure that before we open bids, we have the same criteria to judge everyone by,
yeah,
but.
So the weighting is the same for everyone that's bid.
That's.
yeah,
So what we're trying to look for is the best value. So instead of just saying the best price gets it, we're looking at the best value. So, if someone came in and bid a 75-foot ladder, but met everything else, and we just did best price, then they come in a lot cheaper. So,
Sure.
so that's why we came up with the criteria to try to make sure we're keeping everyone honest, I guess.
Yeah, that's the smart way to go.
So the bids are honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it nice to compare, I mean, and it's very transparent when they all see how you guys are gonna be weighting it, and they might choose, oh, we just make sure this is heavier weight, and they can decide what to, if they can't meet that particular 20-point rating, then they might choose different, but like the lights is probably a good example, where it's a score of 5, it might not appear to be a significant thing for someone perhaps, but they could potentially reduce the price by a good amount, depending on the quality they're using.
Or they know their price is gonna be right there and they could have a better score by reducing something and then getting the price down a little bit, because the price is the biggest weighted item. So
yeah, but it's only 20% though, I mean.
it's only 20%, but if you go too high, it's disqualifying, so.
Yeah, that's true.
We did kind of get an idea that the manufacturers weren't incredibly scared of our budget. The two that we talked to, so.
Yeah.
That was good. When we went to engine 2, they all asked for it to be higher. We were able to get what we needed in that truck, so.
Yeah, you guys asking for more customization than maybe another firm? Fire
Um,
department?
No, I mean, one of the things I didn't talk about is our current ladder truck has a generator. We decided not to do that, and so that's probably $30,000 savings. Because we felt we could get a Honda suitcase generator and accomplish most of the same stuff. One of the big reasons for it was to be able to run the jaws of life we have now are battery powered, so we can take them from truck to truck without having to worry about that. So a lot more of the stuff in the last 15-20 years is the capability of the battery powered stuff has come a long way. So even if we need to use a sawzall, that ladder has a power plug up at the tip, so we'd be able to run a sawzall or something like that. But now all our sawzalls are battery powered. So other than charging the batteries on the truck.
Charging station.
There's no real
Right.
benefit of the generator.
Yeah.
Also, that truck has halogen lights. The halogen lights can't run on the alternator, but now the LED lights can all be run just off of standard alternator on the trucks.
Everybody good? I'm good. Good, yeah. All right, we'll move on. We're all hooked up and running, are you? Okay.
We're good.
Let's see us on the screen. There's no microphone in front of me. Awesome. Well, like, yeah, thank you. That was a great presentation and, it's nice to see the truck in action, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. We'll move on to some, housekeeping stuff here. So I don't think I got, Josh is not here this evening. He came up, obviously he's missing down the end, so if anybody asks anyway. And, before I get going, Andy, you do have an add-on, right?
Item, yeah, 6.
Yeah, and add item 6 in for, this is an MCOG.
Contract for services with MCOG.
Okay, so if it pleases the board, I'd just like to add that on under official action items is number 6, so, okay. All right, well, let's get some stuff out of the way. We have the minutes of May 7th. Does anybody have any?
You want to ask for discussion? All right, good.
Well, no, anybody have any comments, changes or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
I read it, it looked good.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, I'll second.
Andrew's gonna second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? All right, moving along. Payroll warrant number 53. I'll move, payroll 53.
Second.
I was gonna second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, and I'll move, accounts payable number 54. Second that one. Dan, you haven't done one yet. Okay. Dan's gonna second that one. Okay, any discussion? Hey, all those in favor? All right, moving along. Okay, comments, citizens' comments. So I think we're good out here and we don't have I don't have the Zoom screen to look at, so. Andy sent along a letter, coalition to. Let's see if I can find it in my book
He's
here.
got it over here.
Page
You got
6.
Zoom in there?
Yeah, thank you.
Someone's,
Yeah.
Okay.
In the Zoom.
Yeah, did this come in just as a?
Yeah, I was just,
email?
I'm not sure I reached out to some of my colleagues to see if they got this
Yeah.
as well, and there was a range of response,
Yeah,
from folks. This is a federal law apparently that would change and increase the maximum
so,
weight of vehicles, and the concern from this group in particular is just that, bridge standards currently posted at a certain weight, and I'm concerned for smaller, older bridges and.
so what's weird about it is that I read this and I've gone through the numbers of it, and it's kind of misleading. Is you can run 100,000 gross with 6-axle trucks. So we already federally and locally. So it's kind of a weird, I was reading this going, it used to be 80 gross on interstate and it's 100,000 now. So you can still run 100,000 pounds. So I'm not sure where the 91, where that's coming from. So I tried to look into a little bit, but it was very weird. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, just sharing it, there's no.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think maybe we want to table it, you can look into a little more. to
I
find
don't
out.
think there's anything we want to do with it anyway, because
Okay.
the federal and state standards are already, I mean, you can go down in, 95 with 6 axles at 100,000. So that's what we haul.
So what
heat
is
oil.
this?
Yeah,
what is this really trying to say then?
not really sure. I think what used to happen, you used to have federally, it was 80,000 on interstate.
Okay,
And what would happen but when I realized what would happen is you would have, you could go down to, like, we would go down to Portland unloaded with a truck under 80 gross. And on the way back, you'd be over 80 gross and they'd have to come Route 1 to load back.
okay.
So it actually forced trucks onto the
Lesser roads.
local roads. They had the opposite effect. So you were taking, heating oil and gasoline down through downtown Freeport on the way back. But they've amended that now, so as long as you're a 6-axle, so you have 3 on your trailer and 3 on your tractor. It's up to 100,000, I think, gross, so, which is all
So this
roads,
is
unless it's
making,
locally, that, local ordinance. So I'm not really sure that I did a little bit of, but like I say, you didn't find much either, and it's kind of a weird, so. I don't know, let's move on. This, I think, chase the
Well, I'm not
numbers.
sure it's up to a select board, could be.
No, it looks like they're looking for
Just
support,
just
yeah,
support.
but it's a weird one where, I mean,
Well,
yeah.
truck, I mean, but the fact is heavy trucks are tougher on roads than just
Absolutely.
small cars,
Yeah.
lighter cars.
Yeah, they can, that's the way to.
And that's how I read
Yeah.
it, is
Yeah.
that they were looking for.
But they
hours.
also look at, so when
For
you're,
infrastructure.
when you're looking at truck, gross vehicle weights on trucks, they also do it for ground pressure. So
Sure,
when
if
you,
have some-
right, when you
spread
increase the
out.
axles, you have less axle weight,
Yeah.
so it seems like they're heavier, but the ground pressure spread out, so
Yeah.
there's some crazy numbers to it, but yeah.
I think the ladder truck's around 40.
What's
I
that?
think the ladder truck's about 43.
Sure, it's gotta be, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those other, some of the.
And that's on 3 axles. I think the rear axles are rated 30,000.
Yeah, it's significant weight, yeah. Significant weight, so. All right, let's move along here. So any highlights of Andy's report this week? Nothing going on?
Plenty to do, just highlight the websites, progressing, the current go live date for the new site is May 29th, I believe, this week.
Exciting.
I am still waiting to confirm whether we're gonna be able to, at the same time, launch with a new domain. We're looking at transitioning to a .gov.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Again, it's not the first time we've looked into it, but they kind of reminded me that we were planning to do that with this website launch, just kind of start fresh with that. If we can't quite line that up, we'll just delay the domain name, but still go live potentially, unless it's a matter of a couple days. But that's moving along, and most of the
The
staff.
training going well.
I think so. It's just, yeah, I think it's a lot. If you've never been on the websites to work on them on the back end before, it can be overwhelming perhaps. And a lot of it's just like any program, you just gotta get practice with it, and use it. So
Yeah.
we just haven't really been able to carve out a lot of time in the work days to dedicate to working with it. We've done some trainings. We've had to close a couple days, for periods of time to do that, but at least having more people training on how to use it, or at the very least, they can appreciate whoever's gonna be updating it knows a little bit more about what it's taken to do it. But my hope is that it's not relying on 1 or 2 people as we are currently to
Yeah.
do the majority of the updates. Did not get the main community foundation grant, the capacity building grant. And that plan was to help support the costs of the comp plan implementation, the software and part of the fellow.
Right.
We do have it in the budget to do that. My hope was we'd get the funding and then we'd be able to use the budget for strategic planning. So I've got to review that and see how we can accomplish that still too. John's here. They end up coming tonight for striping.
So
Okay. There might be some line striping starting tonight, as early as tonight. John had called around with some folks and got a company, I think new to us, to come in and do that. So we're hoping to have that all done potentially by the end of this week.
To do the Main Street?
Crosswalks, parking stalls,
And that
all
top
the
part of
usual,
Water Street?
potentially. We can have them hit those spots on Water Street.
The parking?
We are interviewing a second person for the Public Works position tomorrow.
Oh, good.
So hoping by the end of the week, we can offer that to somebody. Long time coming.
Somebody's happy back there.
Somebody's happy back there.
Yeah.
Mile Street's pretty well wrapped up with the work. They are waiting for the electrician to come in with the light poles and put those on the bases. And
It looks good.
otherwise, that's pretty well wrapped up.
Yeah.
It needs some painting, I believe, still too, the crosswalk.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Mhm.
Keen Woods has some asphalt down as of today.
Oh, yes.
I think go look at it. Scott told me that they had laid a good chunk of it. Almost done with that. So the plan was that's base layer. They're gonna let that sit for a few days and do any sort of remaining ditching work or work on with the excavator they'll run on the base course, and then and once they're done with that, they'll be able to do the final surface. So that's moving along. Parking lot's pretty well wrapped up. We're working with the contractor and finalizing the final invoices. Hopefully, they are still waiting on filters, for the catch basins, and that'll be at the top. I think they're still trying to track down, with the manufacturer of the check valves. A couple of them just had some passing water, nothing that showed complete failure by any means, but it's just, they guarantee the product 100%, so they're trying to work with them to get those replaced. Before we're done.
So the Belvedere roundabout, I know you put an announcement is coming up. Do you have any specific date and how are they gonna reroute the traffic on Route 1?
Specific date, soon, is there, that's what the signboards say, Belvedere Road closed soon. My understanding as of end of last week is that it could start as early as Tuesday, next Tuesday, following Memorial Day. Traffic will continue on Route 1, for the large duration of the project. They will be using a light. And they'll be alternating one-way traffic. Throughout the majority, probably the majority of that, yeah.
Stoplight, yeah.
And so you can imagine that'll get slow going at certain times of the year on the weekends when you gotta let a line of cars go through and then wait and let the other one come through.
Do we have an anticipated time?
I mean, construction in general, without getting into the specific details of traffic will be impacted on this day from this day and all that. I mean, generally, the construction activity will occur, probably right till November. In some form,
It's gonna take that long to do that roundabout?
in total.
Good lord.
So, Belvedere Extension will be largely closed, all traffic with the exception of those that live or work or go into those businesses there. Belvedere Road itself, I'm still trying to get clarity on whether there'll be, I said this is a little more important. We do need to know about emergency access, in advance, because that, I was doing it on Google Maps without any traffic, and it doubles the response time if you're trying to get to like midway.
Yeah.
And so it takes what it suggests would be a 6-minute travel time, once you're leaving. It takes it to almost 15 minutes in either direction, whether they're going to Noblesboro or the Mills. And so I said, it just, I'm hoping that there'll be the ability to, at the very least, turn off of Route 1, even if they had to go up to NC Hunt and turn around and come back down.
Yeah.
But if they can just communicate to us when it's not available in advance, then we can at least let fire EMS and police.
You're also looking at the potential of considerable backups
Mhm.
on Route 1. When we've had many accidents out there, when we're doing one-way traffic, it backs up miles in the summer quickly.
Mhm.
So going up to NC Hunt and then doing a U-turn and having bumper to bumper traffic to try to work your way back is not really. It's not a good option at all.
Right.
Also, keep in mind, everybody's using the maps on their phone. So that reroutes you to the quickest route, so you're gonna see more traffic downtown.
Oh, yeah, very possible.
It probably helped the Wisconsin back up though.
In comparison.
It was just one back.
Yeah, it's one solid red line on the,
Reds will be
on
happy.
the, on Google Maps.
Town for 6 months.
Sure. So, I'm sure the contractor will want to get in and out of there as quick as possible, so they will go smoothly
Well,
for them.
that's true.
So,
I'll just highlight, we do have bids out, 3 bids out right now for projects, for this facility, all 3 bids include this facility. Roof replacement, lighting improvements, and insulation,
Right.
work here. Lighting also at the, it's 1 bid for lighting, it's this building and town office. The insulation and the lighting are part of the community action grant that was awarded last year.
Yeah.
So we'll see, those are due back in end of this month, like next week. The idea that they'd be available for the board to review and potentially decide at the meeting in June. I think it's, that's it.
sounds good.
Porch roofing is coming Thursday or
Oh, good.
next.
Okay.
Both this time next week.
Yeah, we might be up in the second meeting in June potentially. Other than that, any questions on the report?
No.
No, you do have a date, the last select board meeting there is not the 21st, I think it's the 18th,
Should be the 18th.
yeah.
Don't forget forget the annual town meeting, the second day is at Skidham
Yeah.
Library.
Yes, no.
Off the school.
Randy? All right, now let's move into some business. So I think we have an RFP to consider. You want to go through each line item? Did that the other night with the truck committee. I was good. They're very,
Jump to the double female.
very thorough. Yeah, there was an awful lot of stuff in here I didn't understand. I could tell.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's very, exciting when you dig into it. There's a lot of, it's amazing how much customization and that has to be done on these things. Yeah, we're used to seeing like a police vehicle, for instance. There's 3 or 4 different manufacturers and it's pretty simple, but fire truck's a whole different ballgame. So,
So complicated.
yeah. No, I suppose.
I'll
You wanna-
make a motion to approve it, cause I don't like Tom said earlier, I don't really have the technical ability to make any suggestions
I
to
like
the
the-
RFP.
Yeah, I'll second. I like the
Yeah.
gold leaf Maltese cross design. I like that.
So Dan made a motion to approve the RFP ladder truck.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, and Tom, are you seconding?
Yes,
Did you second? Okay.
all due
Tom.
respect, it looks like an excellent job.
Tom's gonna second, yeah, discussion, yeah. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor? Okay, 4, get that RFP out, see what happens. Yeah. All right, Andy, I meant to ask you about the donation.
Didn't have anything for the report. John had asked if I could, if he needed back,
Okay.
it's possible that the association might be looking to make a donation to the town for some equipment purchase, and he was able to get what he needed in and
Okay.
drop that this evening, and you can
Yeah.
explain what that might be.
Sure.
So we applied for a grant to get a gear extractor. So a gear extractor is basically a commercial washing machine. Because gear can't be spun dry to the same pressure that a home washing machine is. So these are usually a larger cylinder and they have a slower extraction speed. So that way the fire and thermal barriers are not compromised. So they're buying the commercial laundry machines instead of the $1,000 home laundry machines. So they're a lot more expensive. So we've gone out and requested bids from a bunch of different sources. And we got prices back ranging from just under 6,000 to 25,000.
that's a range.
And we just voted at our meeting that we want to pursue a similar size to the old one that we've had for 20-something years. The cost is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000. The grant that we were awarded is $5,000, but it's a reimbursement grant. So our request is to purchase the gear extractor from Fire Tech, which is a 35-pound unit. The quoted price is $79.50, but he's not quite sure on what the shipping costs are. So I don't have a check because I want to have the check for the amount that is different from the purchase price and the $5,000 grant. So what Andy and I had talked about was purchase it with the fire station reserve funds, and then we'll provide a check for the difference of what the grant's not going to cover. And the grant would go back into the account.
Okay.
Sufficient enough for.
I think so.
So I'd like to place the order for the machine,
Yeah.
and then I will give you a check when I know what the invoice is for the difference, I guess.
So you'd be looking to authorize up to a certain amount of money from the reserve to be able to purchase.
Yeah, 'cause right now, we just authorize out of the reserve to purchase the machine, and then when the difference comes in, that would be a separate,
I
separate.
can't imagine freight would be more than $1,000 at most.
Yeah.
even at
I
most.
was thinking if you did 9,000, that should.
Okay, so 8, so 9, yeah,
Up to $9,000 and.
up to 9 out of
Fire
the,
department, equipment
Equipment
reserve or building reserve.
yeah,
Is
I'll
there enough in the equipment reserve, or might need to do the building
Building reserve.
reserve?
Who do you need out? The building
Building
reserve?
reserve, yeah.
The building reserve, okay, make sure I get
Yeah, you
other.
did it on equipment.
I'll make a motion to, authorize up to $9,000, from the fire department building reserve, for the purchase of a gear extractor, through Fire Tech as presented by Fire Chief this evening.
Second.
Makes sense. Heard Andrew second, okay, second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and then, yeah, and then when it all pans out, we will just bring, yeah, I know it's.
I would have had a check, but I don't know what the amount.
Yeah, we can do that, yeah, next time around, so, no problem, all right. Industrial Maytag washing machine, I got it, yeah.
It's a Circle Air Express.
Yeah. It's,
It flies too.
the other one in consideration, we have a police department, where is it? There it is.
Page 55.
Yeah, flip ahead to 55. This is for the police department reserve for donation, and this is for, drama kits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chief had been talking to someone over a year ago. They were interested in supporting the police department, making a donation, that would be able to go towards something useful for them. And at one point, he had talked about being able to have these kits in the cruisers, should the officer come upon a scene, while they're waiting for EMS to get there, potentially fire to get there if they're there first. Even potentially to assist the officers if they're injured themselves, that they would have that there while they're waiting for more help to come. So someone had provided, it was actually 2 donations, you will consider the other one at the next meeting, I think, but for this point, it was a $2,000 donation to help purchase trauma kits.
No,
So the email from the chief just was explaining what he was expecting to buy. That picture there is the picture of the kit that they were looking at. They're
yeah, gotcha.
working with Nick and the supplier they use. The retail cost is almost $200 more than what we'd be able to buy them for. So they're about $500 a piece.
Right, yeah, 458 or something, yeah.
We'd like to get 4 of them, one for each of the cars we have and one for the PD itself.
That
and
one
then
at the, yeah.
So 5.
4 in total.
3, yeah, well, 3 vehicles and then one at the.
Oh, okay,
At the
at the
PD for
department.
reserve, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm assuming they must have like a small, like an IFAC or something in the vehicles now, but nothing this.
Yeah, they all carry a tourniquet on them,
Yeah.
and I think is it maybe stop the bleed like gauze?
Yeah, quick clot
Quick clot.
and probably scissors or something, yeah, something basic, yeah.
But this is, yeah,
Just
would
a little
provide
bit more
something.
expanded. Okay, so the donation amount is 2,000,
It is.
so we're just looking for.
That would go to just the police reserve.
Yeah, under the police department reserve, okay. I'll make a motion to accept the $2,000 donation on behalf of the police department reserve to be expended, spent on the range trauma kits as presented in our packet tonight.
Second.
In a second, all right, any discussion? Those in favor? Okay. Good enough, well, thank you for everybody donations coming in, we appreciate it. So,
Really nice.
yeah, all right, we have a catering permit, it's like everything's in order here, right?
Oh, yeah, it's catering at the Y, right?
Yeah, for one event.
Yeah, yeah, so, all
I'll
right,
just make a motion.
who wants that one, Dan, you got it?
To approve the license for the qualified catering permit for a special event at the Y.
Second.
Fair enough. Tom seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Party roots.
All right, moving along. And Public Works. So that's on the end here, right? Right. Nandy, this one's for bringing on, this is for Paul Brown, this is the one.
Yeah,
to
following
discuss.
up on your joint
Yeah.
select board meeting with Newcastle. You had talked about a couple of board members from each town serving on a work group. Kevin and I being involved with that, and then Paul as a technical resource, and
Yeah.
then, we you know, gathered would just bring other people in kind of more in an advisory role if needed throughout the process, just instead of putting them on the committee for the full duration. Newcastle had appointed a couple of their board members at their meeting last week.
Yeah, they did an appointment, didn't they? Yeah.
So they were just following up, we're meeting this week and just didn't know what you guys had thought about it and, two folks were interested and willing to serve on that group.
I can't do it, I'm too occupied.
Yeah.
Got too much going on, I couldn't.
I don't mind doing this one. I expressed interest last time there, so I can, if any other board members wanna.
Well, if you need a second, I'll do it, but
You get a lot.
I'll do it if you don't want to, I'll do it.
We'll get
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Okay, please. Yeah. We'll do that, yeah. So I'm gonna have one of you guys make the motion, because I don't wanna make a motion with money.
all right. I'll make a motion to appoint Carol Frazier and Andrea Kushgari and as the public works, the joint to create a public works department with the town of Newcastle along with Andrew Dorr. Town manager. To the working group.
Fair enough.
It'll be worded something like that.
So like,
You want me to try this again?
We don't have a
No,
spirit behind it.
Just accept
Oh,
whatever.
actually, I was making it up, but there was actual possible motion here.
You got it, you're pretty darn close there. I forgot.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, Tom's gonna second. Any discussion on that? We good? All right, all those in favor? All right, we can go for ourselves then. So, okay, that's gonna be interesting. And they're all locked in. They've got the grant. Newcastle has the grant for Mr. Brown to come in and
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a $5,000
Yeah.
grant award from the county to help cover the costs associated with working through this. So.
Yeah, great, okay. Yeah, I'm excited to start that process. That's gonna be a fun one. Yeah, one more. That's right. I almost forgot number 6 here. They had on.
Yeah, this was kind of a timely one that.
Yeah.
Separate attachment at your place.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, go ahead, Andy, sorry.
Working, talking and kind of hearing from Michael, hearing from previous planners, we've had certain, the review of projects. And just finding them consistent with our site plan review ordinance can be time consuming. So much so that it inhibits our part-time planners' ability to be able to focus on anything else sometimes. And we have a pretty tall order of tasks to work on, especially with the comp plan having passed. There's ordinances even aside from the comp plan goals that we know we need to update. And so it's really trying to figure out the best use of all resources. Midcoast Council of Government has the capacity in-house, in their organization to provide some of that initial, I'll let Michael explain kind of like more of the scope of what they're doing, but to really assist with kind of some of that initial review. Michael was still bringing it to the planning board, but just to try and help mitigate some of that, and will allow Michael to focus on some of the other many projects that we have going without having to put it aside for 2-3 weeks potentially.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think, Andy hit the nail on the head that doing site plan review and subdivision review is time consuming. Some of it is the process, which I would love to fix, but every time I try to set some time aside to fix it, the application comes through and I have to now deal with the application and I can't fix the process. So from my point of view, we're kind of using a little bit of a broken machine, and I'd rather fix it than keep spending the time with this broken machine. So like Andy mentioned, MCOG does have I think he's a young planner that is available, and the kind of the way that I imagine this working is there's a lot of just like going through the application and pulling out mostly obvious information and putting it in with, you have to go through the whole ordinance and, basically take a sentence here and move it over. So it's something that is really good for someone who's green and learning and wants to get some familiarity. And then it will also allow me to shift my focus to some of the more hopefully complicated, maybe more valuable things that I think need to get done, but just currently there just isn't really the time. Or it just is gonna take forever to do. So this kind of enables me to focus on some other things. I think mostly the intention is to clean up some of the ordinances, especially the admin stuff. Not so much like overhaul standards or anything or change that. It's gonna be part of the comp process, but just kind of get that admin process streamlined. Yeah, so that's, I think is,
That makes sense.
where it came from.
So this would cover a 12-month period, starting June 1 this year. This year's budget is projected to be, in the planning department, projected to be underutilized, a large part due to the fact that Michael and I were doing the code enforcement duties for a while. So that position wasn't being filled. And I can't remember, there was another line in particular, I can't remember right now which one it was, but I had projected that budget to be 25, I think, close to $25,000 underspent.
Okay, so you cover the 16,000.
I'll be able to pay in advance, with this year's budget. I did have it, you know, if, you know, say the ordinances get streamlined, updated before the 12-month period is over, it's such that if we don't end up utilizing all of that time with them, that we'd be able to terminate the contract and they'd send back, you know, whatever was unspent from that balance, basically. Yeah. So.
I think Michael's got plenty of time to put this on.
So I'm just curious, are you aware of like a backlog or of like site plan reviews and subdivisions or things that are coming down the pipeline that you're aware of?
No, I don't know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
I think it was, you know, we've got a subdivision right now that hopefully is just gonna be wrapped up, but between that, the Bangor savings, when that came up, I mean, those two at the same time going through kind of, there wasn't a lot of time to do anything else. And then there's at least one enforcement issue, which is just taking a lot of time to communicate with people and, you know, I mean, hopefully like to avoid those in the future. So if we can get this kind of cleaned up and get this process nailed down, then we won't hopefully have too many of those like enforcement or, you know, cleanup things to deal with. But when a site plan application comes through, it just takes, so there's a lot of time. And I think that, you know, my experience with the planning board has been, they have a pretty good idea of when a project is good or bad. And so I end up with basically like a 30-page report for them, and they could probably go through like it. I don't think that they really rely on that, and I think our ordinance is so is very big. It's big ordinance, and so it takes a while to go through, and there's a lot of items that I think we could probably go through a lot quicker. So it's just when there isn't an application, I'm like, oh great, I got time to like make progress. And then when some of these applications come through, it's like for a project that doesn't need significant, you know, Bangor Savings is maybe a good example, but there's projects that anything non-residential essentially goes through site plan review.
Well, Midcoast Energy is another one that is current, and so they've, you know, their location, their home base up there on off of Route 1. They wanna, I think there's a small piece of a building they wanna take down, but then double the size of that, but you're talking, I think it was 200 square feet they wanted to put on.
Yeah, I'm writing rough numbers. They want to tear something down 200 feet, build something that's even for 600 feet.
Right.
It's like 3 times the size, but that has to go through site plan review when you look at what the ordinance says.
They gotta meet all those same standards, and so, you know, when you think about a property that's being newly constructed with a new use being established, you can appreciate perhaps having to go through a level of review, that's pretty thorough. You know, but when you have an existing use that's been approved and you're looking just to make a, you know, insignificant, we'll just say addition, that's just gonna complement the already approved use. Now, if someone wanted to, you know, put a hair salon in that space, that'd be a little bit different. You know, and you got 2 uses going on the parcel, but in this case, it's just complementing and supporting the already approved use, but it still requires the same level of review.
Yeah.
Do they need to do new site plans whether they do it themselves or bring a consultant on board? I mean, you go through the lighting standards, and a lot of time it's gonna probably end up being not applicable.
Yeah.
But Michael, whoever's doing it, Michael has to still go through and present that finding for the planning board nonetheless the same.
Right.
As I read this, it's a max of 16,000, but there's no minimum. So this is an as needed kind of thing. You're gonna draw on him to get the process cleaned up, and then if some more projects, you can keep them going. And if there are no more projects, you can let them go.
But I think that's how I understand.
That's the way I read
it. Is,
So this is
Yeah,
a
but it's not-
maximum of 16,000.
right, which.
But, and the first thrust is to get the process down, so you can make all the future processes more efficient.
Right.
And then take on the projects, and if they run out of projects, you can let them go, you don't have to spend the money.
Right.
All right,
Right.
So I thought I heard something different. So were you gonna do the projects, like the ordinance reviews and changing this sort of stuff and let this per hour billable rate person from MCOG do the site plan reviews?
Yeah, but the intention is that.
And you're gonna
they'll
do what-
Start the reviews.
Okay.
You know, I'm not gonna hand it off completely. I wanna make sure, I'm gonna go through it and I'll go through with the planning board and make sure that already.
Okay.
That's done thoroughly.
But you're gonna do the ordinances reviews and changes, any of that sort of
Yeah,
stuff?
that's,
I mean, again, still
it's
with
like
a
an
20 hour a
assistant,
week.
kind of an
Yeah,
assistant.
yeah.
Capacity,
Okay, but that's, the assistant is not this person.
the. Well, I mean, I guess if you wanted to call them an assistant, you know, sure, but they're not, I don't expect them to. I'm not planning on having them do the ordinance reviews, the
Right.
ordinance updates and changes.
Right.
That's not, I think that's a little. I don't know the capacity. I am confident. they'll be able to
But
handle-
bottom line, if it's not useful, you don't need to use it.
Yeah,
All right.
right. So,
But,
Take some more.
but this is not to be confused with the intern from the,
No.
no,
okay.
from Island of Stews, that would be me, and, or, because we also then have the intern, Barbara J. Smith, but the Island Institute, fellow is gonna be comp plan.
Right.
And I imagine what we talked about, comp plan, strategic plan with, select board and that. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So I'll just be looking for your authorization for me to enter into the contract with MCOG.
I'll, make a motion to, allow the town manager, Andy Dorr, to enter into an agreement for administrative planning and technical services between town of Damariscotta and Mid-Coast Council of Governments as presented
Second,
tonight. Thank you, Tom. Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. All right, put them to work. That's funny to do, right? So we do have, I'll ask Andy how we want to do this. We do have an executive session. Really kind of different, because usually we kick everybody out of the building, but it's, do we want to stay here? Or do we want to, I mean, you have this stuff hooked up. I don't know how you want to.
I can just
You just want to
stop
shut things
recording.
down and then, yeah, okay. So we'll have we'll go into executive session here in a second, but before we do, is there any board discussion? I'm not gonna call everybody individually, but we'll just kind of move things along.
Yeah.
So, all right, good. Well, with that, I'm gonna make a motion and then we'll wait for everybody to kind of clear off for a minute, and then I don't know, we may have an action afterwards, so we can either hang out or we can let you know, or I don't know what you want to do normally with the
Oh, I can hang out for a bit.
Yeah.
And then come back.
yeah, I don't think we're much more than a couple hours in our.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, please.
All right, we can come and get you guys.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, I'll make a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRS 405 6 F. I don't know what F is.
A discussion of
It's
confidential.
confidential,
materials, I
yeah.
think.
It's not one we use very often, but
No.
F, or a application review. So, all right. Need a second.
second.
All right, Tom seconds. All those in favor? Okay. We are in executive session, so we'll.
I'll lock the store, like, I'm going to go and then just turn it on.